ping a filter. Pinging filters is a really cool way of coming up with percussive sounds, bass sounds, kick drums, and it comes from the analog world for the most part. It's a thing that we use a lot in modular synthesizers, and you start with a trigger. So a trigger is like a square wave, basically, that triggers something into happening. So that might come from a clock or from a sequencer. That'll go into the input of a filter, which I've got over here. Okay, so down here. So that'll go into the input of a filter, and that filter will be, the resonance will be turned pretty much all the way up. Okay, so it's going into self-oscillation if the filter can do that. Okay, and so what's going to happen is it's going to create these really percussive, awesome sort of pinging sounds and things like that you can manipulate in various ways that I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so let's start with this first channel here, the trigger. Okay, so I've got my drum rack here. All I've got is just this pulse. Okay, that's a single cycle pulse wave. That's a trigger or a square wave. You could find one on the internet somewhere. I'll see if I can get this uploaded somehow so you guys can access that. So then what I've also got here is a auto filter, because this trigger is going to come out full frequency, full spectrum, sorry. And I've just switched it over because I just realized I had it on pre-effects here. And I've taken off the top of that there, because that is going to come through really clicky on our filter, and we want to get rid of all this nastiness up the top. I dialed in a little bit of resonance. It's around about 2K. You can mess with where you want it to be. That's just going to add a little bit of a snap on that trigger that comes through, because we're going to hear this trigger. It's going to be right at the start of our percussive sound, and it's going to create like a bit of a transient at the start there. Pinging filters were used a lot in things like drum machines and stuff like that, particularly the 808. So the 808 used a resonant bandpass filter for its kick drum. It used 2 for the snare and for a couple of the other drum sounds in there. All right, so this is what I've got happening here. I've got my auto filter. This filter is so good. I'm just using stock plugins here. If you haven't used auto filter and you're just using third-party plugins, don't worry about the third-party ones. The auto filter is fantastic. You've got all these different filter types, so these different models from various synthesizers, and you've got your low pass, high pass, band pass, and etc. notches and things like that. So I've dialed in that resonance right up to about 100%. You go any further than that, and it starts to drone quite a bit. Even after we've pinged it, the ping will have a rise in pitch right at the start on the attack there, but then it'll sort of drone out a bit. So there won't be any gap between the notes. It won't sort of die down. So if you want that, that's totally fine. And you can mess with that and work whatever's best for you and your track that you're working with. All right, but I'm going to do it at 100%. I've currently got it set on the OSR mode. You can use whatever's good. I'm going to go through a few different sounds here, though. So I've got this trigger coming into the filter. You can see here I've got audio from triggers, and I've set it on post effect, so it's going to come in after that filter I've got there. I've just got that doing a basic 4 to the floor style techno house beat, and let's hear what it's doing at the moment. Turn that down a little. All right, so we're rolling. Okay, so if I mess with firstly this envelope over here, you're going to see this effect that this envelope has on the sound. I've got it really low at the moment. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess around with these different modes here so you can see the different characters that each one has, and I'm going to change it in between the low pass and the band pass. Better with band pass. Cool. Great. Okay, so you can see what it's doing, and you can probably see how you could work that into whatever sort of you're doing with your track there. It's a really good way of coming up with a groove or coming up with a bass drum sound or a bass sound, and starting from with this. You could layer a kick drum over the top or something like that too, and we'll get into some more sequency type stuff in a sec. I've got the saturator here. This is going to add even more character to our sound. Okay, so let's see what this can do. I'll go through the different settings here, but it's currently on analog clip. Let's turn that on. So you can get pretty wild with it. And so on. The last thing here is using this filter delay to add some interest, and you can get it away from it being sort of a bass drum sound into a more of a bass sound as such, or even just basically your groove to write the rest of the track with. It's really good messing around with the drive. You might want to automate the drive, particularly on analog clip or soft sine mode with this to add some variation and interest in your groove. So we'll start with analog clip. huh? So I hope you've liked that. I want to see you guys doing a lot with this. Hit me up. Let me know what you're doing with it. I'd love to see what you guys come up with using these techniques. If you want to check out my course over on Education and Bass, it's on 808 sounds, developing those yourself in Arturia pigments. It's a whole great course. We go through the bass drum, the snare drum, the clap, a whole bunch of other drum sounds, building those from scratch. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys later.